been wanting Uber and Lyft to confess their sins to the world, and they are finally ready to admit, jointly, that they are the cause of at least one problem.
Xbox, Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google,
Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and we want Uber and Lyft to be taking some accountability and responsibility for a lot of the things they contribute. The low wages, the unsafe driving on both the drivers and the passenger side, the fact that they pay people to protest bills that they know darn well will actually help the very drivers they claim to care about. However, Uber and Lyft have released a joint statement together, and they are admitting that, hey, in at least one area, we are okay in admitting we've created a problem. However, before we talk about any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors. Times are changing for gig workers and the gig economy, and there are a lot more gigs from a lot more companies than there used to be. That's why when people ask me where they can go to find resources for the gig economy, I recommend gigworker.com. At this site, you can see what other gig workers are doing and discover better opportunities from industries, companies, resources, and even a forum where you can talk with other people in the gig economy. Gigworker.com is a great resource site whether you work for Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, TaxRabbit, Thumbtack, Upwork, whatever. There's a gig for you and there's a forum for you on gigworker.com. Gigworker.com for all your gigs. So now that I've strung you along a little bit, now that you've seen the ad, what on earth has Uber and Lyft admitted they are a major problem with? Well, traffic. I know, it's probably a little anticlimactic, but yeah, they've admitted that they actually probably contribute a lot to congested roads. And I believe it. By the way, I totally am 100% under the belief that Uber and Lyft create congested roads. I've been living in LA, or around LA, I should say, since 2010. And it is amazing how much worse the traffic has gotten. And when you look at how many people are moving out of LA because of just how expensive it is, heck, I probably won't be here in 2 to 3 years. Me and Katie are probably going to go back to Sacramento. I know it's because Uber and Lyft have gained such a stranglehold. There's so many people in cars just driving around aimlessly looking to pick people up. Now, at first I didn't believe this because the whole thing is like, well, but they're driving people around and those people normally would have driven their own car, so it should even out, and yet it really doesn't work that way because there's more people, because here's the thing, most people didn't drive unless they had to. But hey, if you can take an Uber and Lyft, you might go to a few extra places you wouldn't otherwise have gone. And you have people just driving aimlessly on the roads because they're hoping to score a payday or a long ride or something like that. And well, Uber and Lyft have denied over and over again that they are not responsible for congestion, mainly because they want to avoid being taxed on it. However, they are finally admitting to it a little bit. So here's the article from City Lab. After the 2008 economic crash, Americans began driving less, but it didn't last long. And every year since 2013, U.S. drivers have packed on more miles behind the wheel. The rise in vehicle miles traveled, VMT in wonk speak, can be seen and felt in the nation's metropolises. Congestion on the major arteries like LA's I-405 or San Francisco's Jerry Boulevard is getting worse. Pedestrian death counts are reaching record highs. Tailpipe emissions are growing thicker. Also new since the Great Recession, Uber and Lyft. These ride-hailing services stormed into cities in the 2010s with a grand utopian promise. By tapping into America's vast reservoir of idle vehicles, on-demand app-based rides would reduce the need for personal car ownership and ultimately remove cars from the road. But now, less than a decade into this experiment, the industry is fessing up. Today, the ride-hailing giants released a joint analysis showing that their vehicles are responsible for significant portions of VMT in 6 major urban centers. Still, Uber and Lyft's combined share is still vastly outstripped by personal vehicles. I'm sure the report was very, very clear to highlight that. As Chris Pangilian, I probably pronounced that wrong, Uber's head of global policy for public transportation wrote in a blog post accompanying the findings, although TNCs are likely contributing to an increase in congestion, its scale is dwarfed by that of private cars and commercial traffic. I'm sure. Led by the respected transportation consultancy Fair and Peers, the analysts provided a high-level view of the combined mileage contributions from Uber and Lyft as a share of overall VMT over a recent month in the Boston, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. areas. Results are shown at the level of the larger metropolitan landscape, which includes both the central city and its surrounding suburbs, as well as the level of the core county that contains the city's most concentrated homes and jobs. Notably absent here, New York City, the largest U.S. market for these transportation network companies, or TNCs. And I'm going to just venture a guess that the reason that's missing is because it would be really embarrassing to release a report where the vehicles are capped, because they're capped in New York City. There can only be so many on the road. And yet, if they show that they are still causing congestion, New York City is crazy enough that they just might limit the vehicles even more. They might put a stricter cap on the vehicle. So I think that's probably why. A Lyft representative said that this was partly because the city is unique in terms of its extremely low rate of car ownership and expansive transit system. Whatever. You have capped vehicles and you're still contributing to a congestion problem, and that looks really bad, especially in a state that has shown that they are perfectly willing to limit the amount of vehicles on there. Personal opinion, of course, can't prove it. Don't sue me at Uber or Lyft. Previous research by the independent transportation consultant Bruce Schaller has shown that yellow cabs and TNCs together make up 50% or more of traffic in central Manhattan. That's one of the reasons why they have caps on the vehicles. Findings that pushed New York City lawmakers earlier this year to approve congestion fees for drivers entering the downtown core. The new findings show that Uber and Lyft account for just 1 to 3% of total VMT in the larger metropolitan regions surrounding the 6 cities. But they have a far heavier traffic impact in core urban areas like the table traffic shows. In San Francisco County, Uber and Lyft make up as much as 13.4% of all vehicle miles. In Boston, it's 8%. In Washington, D.C., it's 7.2%. These numbers suggest that ride-hailing is hitting traffic harder in many cities than previously understood. For example, independent research by the San Francisco County Transportation Authority in 2017 showed that, as of fall 2016, TNCs generate about 6.5% of the country's total VMT on weekdays and 10% of weekends. And the agency found that the growth in ride-hailing was already a major contributor to noticeable slowdowns on San Francisco streets. I can't speak personally on that because even though I have a brother who lives in San Francisco, I didn't quite like going to San Francisco that much in the first place. The traffic has always been bad in my opinion. I don't know if it's as bad as LA. Now the Fair and Pierce memo indicates that TNCs accounted for nearly twice the VMT in San Francisco than the SFCTA had estimated, said Gregory Earhart, a professor of civil engineering at the University of Kentucky who has researched Uber and Lyft's effects on public transit ridership. That means the services are likely delaying commuters more too. Quote, this difference may be due to the continued increase in TNC use over the intervening 2 years. With nearly double the TNC VMT, we would expect the effect of TNCs on congestion to be much higher in 2018 than it was estimated for 2016 conditions. Ride-hailing did not seem to have an equally large footprint in all cities. Uber and Lyft posted lower shares of total VMT in LA, Seattle, and Chicago, even though that's strange because LA and Chicago were both listed as pretty high use. Anyway, so here's one of the charts look like. And you can see that there. So there's all that. Now, what's the report look like? Well, here's what the report looks like if you want to look at it. And I will, of course, share this in one of the links below. This is a 21-page report, and it is by Brian McGann of Lyft and Chris Pangilian, I pronounced that wrong again, from Uber. So here's the thing. It is nice, and it has lots of pretty charts and pictures. As you can see, the total TNC VMP midpoint was quite high. The findings. Here's the thing. It is very nice, I guess, that Uber and Lyft are finally fessing up that they are part of the congestion problem. that is a good first step. I always, whenever they admit to something though, I always look at it like, okay, what is the motive behind it? What is the motive? And they have denied that this is a problem for a long time, particularly around times when new bills have been introduced to fine the rideshare industry. However, I have noticed in the last few years, Uber and Lyft have been proposing that, hey, maybe they should get taxed, but not quite the way that you think. Like, if you're only driving in a single vehicle, like if there's no one else in the car, you should be taxed to use the freeways. Well, that would, in theory, encourage more people who are driving single to stay home and call an Uber or a Lyft. So that was one of the things they proposed. Also, they are still having issues with like AB5 and how they treat their employees. And maybe in their mind, and this is a guess, I don't know exactly what they're thinking. They're hoping that by admitting like, hey, we're contributing to some of the problem with the streets. This is kind of like a public olive branch. Like, what can we do to help fix this? We'd like to work on it. And maybe it could distract politicians from the AB5 bill and any others that are similar that could reclassify contractors as employees. I mean, I don't know exactly what their motive is in this. That's the thing. I just don't. I mean, look, I'm glad that they're admitting something. I really am. But what are they hoping to gain from this? That's the only thing I haven't quite been able to figure out. Does it even hint anything in the last thing? Because here's the final paragraph. But for researchers who spent years seeking the truth about ride-hailing, Uber and Lyft's fresh numbers come as a valuable contribution. It's great to see them be upfront, said Schaller. I'm a scourger for any information I can get my hands on. This is straight from the companies and it's very useful. It helps advance our understanding. I would caution because the Uber and Lyft have been very secretive about their numbers for years, and I don't 100% trust that they're being completely honest here. Although the fact that they did this in partnership with Fur and Piers, maybe they are being a little bit more upfront about it. Who knows? But the only question I have is why, and I can't quite figure out what that reason is. Maybe it will become clearer as the days and weeks go on. Who knows? We'll have to see. But anyway, I would like to ask you the question, because since I don't know, what do you think is the reason Uber and Lyft are being upfront about congestion? What do you think their game plan is, and what angle are they selling this from? I would love to hear your theory. So comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly, and you get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are getting just a little down, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, and you get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want to watch more content from me that's not rideshare related, check me out at Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur Vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And finally, if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers, check us out at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts on Facebook. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.